Hi and welcome, Todd Cahill. You're listening to the It's Not Out There, but It's In You podcast, where on this podcast we talk all about the battles that we all face in our life and really how the battles that we face affect us and how we can think differently about each battle and start redefining its meaning so we can start relinquishing its power over us. See, it's a choice you have to make every day to become the best you. So we want to help you return to the battle at hand, the issues that you face, redefine what their meanings are, and then repeat the cycle over and over in order to keep winning the battle that you face. So stay tuned. So glad you're here. Thanks for listening. Hey and welcome. This is Todd Cahill and you are listening to my podcast. It's Not Out There, It's In You. And I'm so excited about our guest today. This is episode 10. I'm going to be interviewing a gentleman by the name of Rob Murgatroyd. And this gentleman is absolutely incredible. And we go through his story today. And the topic of today's podcast is about you versus your freedom. And I really dissect that in three different ways that you're going to see in this interview. But Rob just did something pretty amazing at the end of last year, walked away from a very big 7-figure income as a doctor to really pursue what he really wanted to do in his life and his passions. So we really dive into all of that, his story, who he is, and what he really is doing for other entrepreneurs and people, even in the corporate side. Rob has an awesome podcast that you can check out. Work hard, play hard, I believe.com. Check him out on Instagram at Rob Murgatroyd. And he is just one that you definitely want to follow. See, anyone that I personally interview, I've hand selected because they've encouraged me on social media. They've helped me through a lot of things I've been dealing with. So anyone that you're going to be listening to that I interview on my podcast, they are major inspirational people. And really there to help you as the listener overcome yourself, win the battle within, of course, the 6 inches between your ears, and unleash your winning mindset. I just also want to say my book is almost out, which I'm so excited about. February 19th, people all over the country and all over the world have already ordered it, and it's going to be in their hands on February 19th. So it's definitely not too late. This is just the launch. It is $19.95 right now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's a hardback copy, You versus You, the 12 ways to kick your own ass and win. And that's really why I'm on this podcast today, to really dissect a lot of the content from that book, but also bring on other guest speakers who are winning and are currently or either won or currently winning these battles so that we can fight the battles together and you have the resources and support for you when you are going through a lot of these battles that we feel like we can go through it together. I'm also offering actually my hardback copy of my book, You versus You, for free, signed by me and my wife, as my wife Kristen did the epilogue of my book. If you go to www.youversubook.com, that's youversubook.com. You can check out how to get a free copy and what the bonus offer is. And I'm only offering it for a very, very limited time. So check out www.youversubook.com. And also in the offer, I will say I'm offering over $1,300 of training, of coaching, of courses, master classes. You're going to get Unleash Your Winning Mindset, which you can see on the website, what all that entails. You're also going to be getting meditations, guided 5 of them that you could personally use right now to really unleash your winning mindset and transformation of your mind. Also, you're going to get 3 out of the 12 battles on video course. That's You versus Your Finances, You versus Your Calendar, and You versus Your Relationships, which me and my wife did together. So all of that and a book for free. You'll see the offer on youversubook.com, but it's pretty amazing. It's only $57, okay? And you're getting just dozens and dozens of videos and masterclasses and the book for free. We're including the book for free, signed for $57, and $10 of that is going to charity. So guys, thanks so much for listening, and let's listen in as I interview the one and only Rob Murgatroyd. Okay, we are live. Welcome everybody to the It's Not Out There, It's In You podcast. This is Todd Cahill, and today I am so excited. We have a very special guest. Rob is here, Murgatroyd, and man, I've been following Rob on social media for many months. I mean, he is probably one of the most positive, incredible people I have seen on my social media, and it's always nice to follow positive people on social media and just getting to know him and really what he has done. So I'm excited to interview you today, Rob, and talk a little bit about what you're doing with your life and some of the cool things that we're going to be asking you and kind of going from there. So thanks so much for joining the podcast.
Yeah, you are so welcome. You know, I tell you, I am super excited if not only to have two positive people on social media together, but how about the hair? I mean, like, we should do a hair off. I mean, you and I spend a lot of work on this business, so we're proud, huh?
Yeah, you really do have pretty awesome hair.
Well,
so what happened with your hair like a couple years ago? It was like a different style, and then you just
it was a lapse in
kind of put it.
It was a lapse in judgment. I mean, it was a lapse in judgment. It was a bad hair cutter. You ever have one of those things where, like, you see, I don't know, like, some Latin singer like Juanes or Julio Iglesias, and you're like, I could do my hair like that. And,
Yeah.
you take it to the hair cutter and, you look like a Muppet. Like, that's what happened to me.
Well, I love it now. It looks great, and I'm excited to interview you. For all of those listening, we in this podcast that's called "It's Not Out There, It's In You," and we focus on some of the chapters of my new book coming out, You versus You. And one of the chapters of the book, The Battles, Rob, is You versus Your Freedom. And it's an interesting thing because both of us have similar backgrounds in the relationship marketing industry, and both of us have really strived to not only create our own freedom in our own lives, but we've also helped and are in the process of helping a lot of people even create theirs. So we're going to get into your masterminds and everything that you're doing. But just to get to know you, in the beginning of this podcast, could you just share a little of your story, a little bit about yourself, your family, where you reside, your background, all that good stuff for the listeners to get to know you a little bit?
You bet. I mean, do you want me to start at the beginning, like where I was born, or you want me to start where I am now? I'll go any way you want to go.
Yeah, just the 411. I mean, just pretty much everything. I love to first of all just get to know you on just personally, and really where you did come from, because I don't know where it all started for you.
Who is this guy, Rob Murgatroyd? Okay, got it. All right. So I will be as brief as I can. I was born in Queens. Actually, I was born in Brooklyn, lived there for a couple of years, and then moved to Queens, New York, which was the suburbs. It was the country compared to Brooklyn and Manhattan. And I was raised not good. I was raised in a apartment community. There were three brothers, me and two others. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. I had a alcoholic, abusive dad, like really abusive. And I just fought hard as I got older to just get out of the environment of all the noise and the fighting and the abuse. And so did my other brothers. And we did. We all did really well for ourselves. I went on to become a chiropractor. My other brother is a lawyer who's about to become a judge. And my third brother works for Clive Davis in the music industry. So we all did good. We all stayed close. And I went out to chiropractic school. Later in life, moved out to Atlanta, Georgia, and ran my practice for 25 years. And I just retired from that practice, which I'm sure we're going to get into in a sec, and decided to make some major life changes, which I'm sure we're going to get into in a sec as well.
Absolutely. Well, I want to start with kind of returning back to some of the struggles. I mean, I'm actually a New Yorker too, and I grew up in Albany, New York, and obviously the New York is a little bit different than upstate, but two fellow New Yorkers, so that's something new I just learned about you.
Yeah.
But going through, kind of what you've gone through and, with your dad and stuff like that, like what consumes your mind controls your life, and how did you? And it's awesome that you and your brothers are successful and doing awesome things, because usually it doesn't end up that way in a lot of other people's cases if there's abuse or anything like that, or maybe they grew up. But it also can drive us too in a good way. So can you just tell us a little bit about what consumes your mind now, and even back in the day? I mean, what made you want to be successful? What made you have that drive within you? And maybe some things that you've dealt with in your past that maybe were consuming your mind in a wrong way, where you had to really make that pivot, that switch in your mindset.
That's such a good question. What consumed my mind way back then was, get me out of this mess. How can I get out of this mess? And the first thing that came to mind when you asked me that question is I remember picking up a book by a then brand new speaker, Tony Robbins. He wrote Awaken the Giant Within. And in 1984, I decided to scrape up enough money to go to one of his seminars. And the way I got the money was I walked to a haircut. It's funny, it just made me think about this. I went to a haircutting shop on the block, and I asked them if I could sweep the floors. And they said, well, yeah, you can sweep the floors. So I did. And then after a couple of days of doing that, she said, you want to shampoo hair? You'll get tips. And I was like, can you teach me? She's like, yeah. So they taught me how to shampoo hair. I made enough money shampooing hair, sweeping the floors to go to a Tony Robbins seminar. And to give you an idea of how long ago this was, I'm sure most of your listeners have either been to a Tony Robbins seminar or know what his Unlimited Power Weekend is like. But when I was there, it was him and his first wife, Becky, was her name, and he did a 3-hour fire walk. And at the end of the fire walk, him and his wife sat in the back of the room with a folding table trying to get you to come to the remainder of the weekends. Like that.
Wow.
That is how long ago that was. So to answer your question, I dove deep into the world of personal development. I read every Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, put my headphones on and just immersed myself in that world. And I view those struggles actually, like abuse is never good, but I view those struggles. I don't know that I would have the drive that I have now if I didn't have to overcome what I overcame.
Oh, absolutely. And so that was back in the 80s, you said?
I would say, yeah, that was back in the 80s. I was born in 66. So yeah, probably early 80s, mid 80s, somewhere in there.
Is there anything specifically that introduced you to like personal development, or did you like just kind of fall on it, like just kind of by accident? And well, obviously nothing's by accident, but back in the 80s.
Another good question. There was a friend of mine who said he's going to this seminar, and I was like, what's a seminar? And he told me Tony Robbins. I'm like, what's a Tony Robbins? And I showed up, with this 7-foot tall beast that was in the room. And, I think the way I was introduced to it was just through a friend saying, hey, go to a seminar. And then the more I immerse myself. So first, the gateway drug for me was Tony Robbins. And then after that, I just, I became, what was the name? Nightingale Conant was a company that did tapes, like tape series.
Oh, yeah.
And I just bought everything. I mean, I was buying tapes. I was going to the gym listening to the tapes. I was in the car listening to tapes, reading the books. I just became a junkie with it. And you have to be careful with that too, because sometimes all you do is spend your time, learning, but you're not actually taking the action steps. So I went through a period of, with that as well.
Absolutely. And I've seen a lot of people do that. And I'm the person where I love going to seminars, but I'm also, when I go to a Tony Robbins seminar, it's like halfway through, I'm like, okay, get me out of here. I want to take action. Enough is enough, in a good way.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, and you've done that. So in my book, Rob, I want to discuss actually, I talk about, there's really kind of segue the different types of freedom. So we're going to get to your chiropractic, background. And I would like to talk about, just like that entrepreneurial spirit that you have too. But there are really 3 different types of freedom. The first freedom is from, the second freedom is to, and the third is freedom for. So the first, freedom from, is a reaction. It's past oriented. You are fighting something behind you. You want to get rid of it, and you often have to go backward in order to disentangle its grip. So this type of freedom is associated with addiction, bitterness, fear, or bad habits that you're trying to overcome something. So in your past and even now, because I think we all still have that, no matter how driven, successful, we all still have maybe some bitterness, some fear, some bad habits that we're all trying to overcome. Is there anything even right now that you're trying to overcome that you know that you got to kick this in order for you to get to that next level? And is there anything in your past that you did kick and you look back at it and say, if it wasn't for me doing that and moving forward and not living in that, man, I wouldn't be where I'm at today?
I would say if we go to the past, what I had to, what did I have to kick in the past? Well, I was looking, you're talking about within my own mind, not environment, right?
Yeah, but your environment does obviously create some of that. So obviously you didn't grow up in the perfect environment. I don't think anyone that's listening did or has. If you have, you're very blessed. But at the same time, obviously it created who you are now, this awesome version of who Rob is, real time 2019. So maybe some of the things that you
Yeah,
had to overcome.
I would say for me it was freedom from the environment that I was in, which was just a really, really bad, noisy, loud, abusive, like tenement
Mhm.
apartment environment. So I wanted freedom from that. And I would say what I'm trying to break free from currently is two things that I think we all battle, but I definitely know that I do. One would be belief in myself that I can do it, especially when I'm moving into a world that's new to me. Number
Mhm.
one, and number two is imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is just
Yeah.
pops up all the time.
Yep.
When you're, like, who am I to say I wrote a book, or who am I to say I've got, a top 100 podcast, or I'm such an imposter.
Mhm.
So I would say those two things.
So let's talk about that because it's exactly what I was thinking before you even brought that up. Because you are segue into something, and if you can just maybe share a little bit of that story and how long you have been a doctor, and because obviously I've been following you on Insta stories and stuff, and in a lot of the videos that you post, it's like you're creating this epic, unbelievable mastermind for people that really take people on such a journey. But I guarantee you, not only you, but some of the people that you work with are going to also feel that way, that imposter syndrome. It's like, can I really live this life? I mean, you mentioned um, quite casually a little while ago, yeah, I'm going to, move to Europe for 4 months. And then I'm in my mind, I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, how do you like transition and how do you feel about that? I mean, like, how did you go from something, it sounds like you didn't really like it after 20 something years, which I can relate to certain things I've done for so long. Hey, it's not like it's a bad profession, but it's just like you're kind of over it. You just want to be like, okay, that was nice and that was great for the time it being, but now I'm going to that next level. But as you said, it's scary, it's fearful, you've never done it before. So how are you dealing with that right now, with freedom literally in your fingertips as we speak, complete freedom for you and your family? What are some things that maybe you're doing to battle that imposter syndrome, and then of course teach it to others?
Yeah, I think probably the best way to answer that is to put it sort of in context for your listeners so that they understand how this journey unfolded. So, whenever you do anything for 25 years, it becomes mind numbing after a while. And as a chiropractor, no knock to chiropractic or chiropractors, but what we deal with is people coming in saying my neck and back hurts. I mean, that's it. So if one more person said my neck or back hurts, I was going to shoot myself in the eye. I couldn't do it anymore. It was just so freaking monotonous. And I've got this energy and this drive and these dreams and these visions of what I want to accomplish. Monday morning rolls around, like everybody else, we're recovered from the weekend, we're ready to go. And I walk in and it's like, hey, doc, this hurts right here. Hey, doc, this hurts right here. Hey, doc, this hurts right here. And it's all day long. And here's the problem. The problem is that I was making a great freaking living. I was making a lot of money. And so I chose the money over my happiness. And I did it for probably the last 10 years. And my wife and I have a ritual every year where we say, okay, at the end of the year, December 31, what is it that we want to leave behind and not take into the new year? And it's usually a story about some limiting belief that we just keep telling over and over again. And this year we sat down and we both said at the same time, we want to leave the practice behind. And that meant leaving behind $1 million a year in income. And that was not easy to do because I can do it with my eyes closed. And it's only 20 hours a week, in terms of actually being with patients, but there's a lot of bandwidth that's associated with thinking about it when you're not there. So I spent the better part of, I would say, the last quarter of the year working on what I thought I wanted the next year to look like. And I knew that, which is this year now, I knew that what I wanted was to not go into the practice anymore. So December 31, we were going to lock the doors, put a sign on it saying, "Gone fishing. Thanks for 25 years. It's over." We tried to sell it for the last 6 months. It's kind of in a remote-ish area of Georgia, so there wasn't a lot of chiropractic. So I just to be completely transparent, I wasn't able to sell it. At the very last minute, when we put that sign up, before we put the sign up, a local chiro reached out and said, "Hey, look, I heard that you're leaving. I'd like to buy your patients from you." Made me an offer. It was fantastic. So December 31st, we closed it. And now, I looked and I said, okay, well, what does this year look like for us? We can do anything we want to do. For the first time in our life, we can do anything. We're free. What do we want to do? And my wife said, well, for your mastermind, and we'll talk about that in a minute, for your mastermind, you're going to be in Monaco in the south of France in June. And then we're going to be back for the last mastermind of yours in October in Italy. What if we were to just stay there? What if we fly to the south of France in June and we just stay there between June and October? And I was like, yeah, I could. Let's do it. So we set a plan for how we're going to do it. And it's kind of like we're going to do a month in Italy, a month in Greece, a month in Spain, a month like that. And then we said, okay, well, where do we really want to live? We don't want to live in Atlanta anymore. No knock to Atlanta. We're just tired of it. It's been 25 years. There's no ocean. It's either really hot in the summer or really cold in the winter. So we want to go to Southern California. So we're going to want to move to Hermosa Beach. So we said, what if we left in October from Italy and we went directly to Hermosa Beach? So that's what we planned. So that's what's upcoming.
Wow, that's exciting. That's really, really awesome. So I want to talk, you said so many cool things for our audience to listen to. And as an entrepreneur myself, and an author, we talked about the first freedom is from, and what you're talking about really is the second freedom is to. And if you don't mind me just reading just a paragraph here, that what Rob's really talking about is the second type, freedom to, is a rebellion. It's present oriented. You are consciously making your own choice, figuring out your own values, and wanting to pave your own way. That's exactly what Rob and his family are doing, which is so awesome. This is the you who wants to spread your wings, break through boundaries, and explore opportunities. You're exercising your ego and your independence. Out of all the animals in the world, Rob, the great white shark is the only one that cannot successfully be contained. Not only are they aggressive and a logical nightmare to capture and transport, but their natural propensity is to travel great distances. Tagged great whites swim hundreds of kilometers within a matter of days, and in 2014, one even swam clear across the Atlantic Ocean. This exercise in freedom is essential to their survival. As is their predatory thrill of hunting food, they refuse to be fed by humans. So I want to share that because you did something for 25 years. And let's be honest, you, me, even me breaking out to be an author and stuff, that imposter syndrome. But at the same time, it's like we're rebelling against what everyone expects us to be. I come from network marketing for the past 15 years. Everyone expects me to just continue to do network marketing and be happy and make a lot of money, which I've made a lot of money and it's been great. But my gosh, continuing to do three-way calls and to help people in the very beginning stages and see so many people quit on their dreams, it really is exhausting. Just like you said, oh, doctor, my neck is hurting. It's that constant oh my gosh, 15 years or you 25 years. So I want to talk about in the rebellion of you to do this, the balls that it takes for you to do this, even at the level, where you're at in life, right? You're a little older than me. I'm 38. To do that in your point of life and to completely go from Atlanta from 25 years to make, you said, $1 million a year, working 20 hours a week. That's a lot more hours that you didn't have to work, but you still did it. to be like, screw this, I'm totally going to do this. And of course, there's a lot of fear there, but you did it. Like, how does that feel? Do you feel like it was kind of a rebellion and it was just kind of like every day you're just like, I got to get out of this? And then you kept making your plans. You kept game planning with yourself over and over again. What was that process? What did that process look like?
That's such a great question. You're a great interviewer, and it's such a pleasure to be interviewed by somebody who's good. So let me just say that because I do a lot of these. Well, here's what I ultimately had to do. You know, Mel Robbins talks about 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
All right. So for those of you that aren't listening, imagine walking to the end of a diving board and going 3, 2, 1, and you just jump in. Something with your brain, you just kind of like makes you jump in.
Yep.
So for 10 years, I wasn't. It's actually 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. For 10 years, I wasn't doing that, and it was for me in this particular case. I needed the December 31 deadline where I made a public announcement. Hey, everybody. I'm done with chiropractic on December 31st. Lock the doors. Don't let me go to the office. Tell the patients they need to find somebody else, and literally tell the staff there, 2 weeks before, give them 2 weeks notice, and do all of the things that we needed to do. If I did not have a deadline, it would not have happened. I would have rolled into January and said, well, we'll do it sometime this year. I needed a deadline.
That is huge. And I truly believe in that. How about this too? What was the consequences if you didn't close your shop on the 31st?
It's great. It's great too. What were the consequences? The consequences would be that I would have one more year living a life that I did not want to live. Not being able to show up as the husband I wanted to show up because I was pissed off at the end of every day, saying I feel like I'm wasting my life. Not being the father that I wanted to be because I was irritated and didn't have the bandwidth to sit down. I have a 4-year-old at 52 years old. Can you imagine? I didn't have the bandwidth to sit down, with a 4-year-old and watch Trolls at the end of the day. So you know what I mean? So there was family things that would have been affected.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times, that first part, let's set a deadline, let's set a goal. And I think a lot of people understand that. A lot of driven people understand that. But when I started personally putting consequences, I remember a couple of mentors of mine years ago. They set this goal to make, I don't know, $500,000 a year in, their business. This was like 10 years ago. And one of the brothers said, if they didn't make it, he would jump out of a plane. The other brother said he'd have to shave his head. And then the wife said she would eat, and she was very shape, yoga. She, looked great for it. She said she would have to eat a Big Mac every single day for 30 days straight.
There's actually a documentary on that.
Yeah, exactly. And what that would have done to her health.
This documentary actually documented with blood samples what it did. It was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Like it was like a psychosis that happened at the end of it with all that. But that's another story. Yeah. So you're really talking about like the carrot and the stick, right? So
absolutely.
I don't work well. It's really interesting that you asked this question because I'm in a mastermind with a mutual friend of ours, Chris Harder. Yep. And I was in LA this weekend. And one of the things that he did in the mastermind was we talked, you had to choose what you wanted. It was either if you, if you accomplished the goal within the next 90 days, what was the positive thing that you were going to do for yourself, or what was the negative thing that you do for yourself? And it was really interesting to listen as he went around the room what people did. One guy said he's going to wear a red Speedo for the first full day. And then it's funny, the girl next to him said, yeah, but you're punishing me, which I thought was hysterical. And then, another person was going to be, I'm going to buy the Ferrari that I've always wanted to buy. For me, it's always been less about the pain and more about the pleasure. So, I'm not sure if that answered the question, but I always look for, I don't do well with negative. I do well with positive. Like accomplish this and you get to spend 4 months in Europe. Accomplish this and you get to have a house on the beach in Hermosa. You know what I mean? That's the drive for me. I will knock down walls to go sail the Greek islands over some, negative thing like I have to shave my head.
Yeah. Please don't do that.
Yeah, right. I mean, we both can't. We both can't let that happen.
No, we can't unless we look like The Rock, and we don't. But well,
Moana.
yeah, and I like that perspective because a lot of people are listening, and they will listen to this because I'm really going to promote it because I'm already having a great time interviewing you. And the thing is, I think everyone's different, and being a coach for many years myself, you can't always put your own philosophies on people. Maybe what works well for you might not work well for others. So I do appreciate that perspective. The third part of freedom, which there was that rebellion, that second part, it's that second part is the two. So, okay, I want to go to this vision. I want to go to this possibility of completely revolutionizing my life, revolutionizing my 4-year-old's life and my wife's life, and getting out of Atlanta. By the way, I lived in Atlanta too, and Duluth when I worked for Maxwell, so I know exactly.
Oh, that's right. He's a Georgia boy.
Yeah, the traffic there, it's like just like LA. It just drives you nuts.
It's a lot. That's why we live in the city. We live in Buckhead.
Okay, I love Buckhead. Yeah, I went to North Point Church with Andy Stanley. I mean, really good people there. Awesome place, but just you're like sucked into that. You can't go anywhere certain times a day. But anyway, I want to talk about the third part of freedom from my book, You versus You. It's really freedom for, and this gets a little bit, if you don't mind, Rob, I want to get a little bit Mel Gibson Braveheart on you right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish when you're in post-production on this, on editing, I want you to put the music behind it.
I will. My guy can. He can do anything. But Braveheart, I love the movie. I love any movie like Gladiator and stuff. Being a man and one man to the other, we have a family to protect. And we have a child and children. I have 3 children to protect. And not only for us, but we also have a passion for others. I mean, what you're doing, and we're going to get to your mastermind here after this, but what you're doing for others is revolutionary. So really the third part is freedom for, which really for me, it's a revolution. It's future oriented, where you're proactively exercising and also sacrificing your freedom for the sake of the good that it will do for others. This action is based on intrinsic motivation and is, unfortunately, the least used type of all the freedoms. And, if you know anything about Nelson Mandela, he was imprisoned for 27 years. And of course, never came out angry, never came out blaming. He was in prison for doing nothing wrong, but literally revolutionized the country of Africa. And what I like to do, Rob, is just kind of get, like I said, Braveheart on you and say, okay, cool, you sold your practice. Okay, cool, you guys are doing good personally. That's awesome. But impact, contribution, legacy, the freedom not only for you and your family, but the freedom that you're helping others achieve that have the imposter syndrome, that feel like they can't do it, but they're connected to you. And I know what you're going through. I have my own masterminds that I charge $10,000 a person or more. And, you get on the phone with them, you cast this vision, and they're like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. And then they don't return your call. They don't sign up. After they said, this is exactly what I want. And of course, what happens is the fear of money, the fear of, I just don't have the time. And some people just can't do it. Maybe it's not in their passion or their wheelhouse. But like for you, you're creating this legacy. And I watched you even last summer, and you have some great connections. I mean, you're friends with Lewis Howes, someone I've looked up to for many, many years, especially when he came out about his own, sexual stuff. Back when he was a little boy, I had the same thing happen to me when I was a little boy. So I heard him on a podcast years ago. I started bawling and crying, because I never came out with it. And then finally I was honest with people, what happened to me. So what you're doing for people is amazing. So talk to us a little bit about your vision on legacy and your vision on going out there and, even sometimes putting your own freedoms aside for the sake of others.
Yeah, sure. So just a side note on Nelson Mandela. I just took a trip recently to Cape Town, South Africa, and the house that we rented had this beautiful balcony that looked out on the water, and I see this little island, and the lady who was in charge of the house, I said, what's that little island? She said, that's where Nelson Mandela was for 20 whatever years. Yep. And I every morning I got to wake up and look out at where he was for those years of his life, and then to think about getting out of that little shack that he was in and then ruling and running South Africa is just insane. So that's such a beautiful example that you just did. To answer the question on impact and legacy, I think the best way I can answer that question is, I think deep down inside of us, we all have a zone of genius that we know that we have. And if we tap into it, then we can tap into the impact and the legacy that we want to leave. And for me, for whatever the reason is, over the course of the last 10 years or so, I've always known that if I take a trip with somebody to, like I took Lewis House to Greece with me this summer, if I take a trip with somebody who is high level and we go to a really, really cool place and we have really, really fun experiences planned, when I get, we'll use Lewis as an example, or I also took Chris and Lori Harder with me as well. When I get them out of their familiar environment, their day-to-day environment, their familiar network, and I put them into a place that is radically different. People are speaking a different language. There's different visual things that you're looking for. There's different foods. There's different smells. Everything is different. And I put them together with a tribe of people that are on their level or higher in different professions, like a mastermind is. What you wind up with is magic, and you come home from those trips different. And so I knew that that's what I wanted to create. I mean, there's a ton of masterminds, and I'm in a few of them. No knock to the mastermind, the traditional mastermind. If you are sitting in a mastermind, with a long table and you're in the back of a Holiday Inn in Hoboken, New Jersey, with a prepackaged speaker that's coming up and the next prepackaged speaker and the next exercise, you're going to only go so far. But if you and I together, like for example, one of the things that I'm doing is we'll be in Monaco. I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
And if you were in my mastermind with me, there's going to be a helicopter that's going to pick you up in Nice, and it's going to helicopter you into Monaco. And then we're going to go on a vintage car ride through the French Riviera. And then we're going to go sit over the Mediterranean, watch the sunset, and then we're going to do an exercise over a glass of champagne. Or in Italy.
Sounds so boring.
It sounds terrible, right?
Sounds like a James Bond movie.
It's like James Bond. Yeah. And then like another example is in Italy, we're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to go truffle hunting as one of the experiences. Nice. And we're going to go back to the villa and we're going to cook what we found with the truffle. And we're going to have a mastermind session there. So the idea to answer the impact legacy question is, I want to be able to say, I took Todd with me on this trip. And as a result of him being on this trip, he met one of my mastermind members. His name is Darren White. He's got $100 million company. Another one's Matthew Marek. He's got a $36 million company. Chris and Lori Harder are in it. So these are super high-end people. I want to be able to say, this is the legacy I want to leave behind. This is a long way around to answer your question, but I had to give you context.
Love it.
If you're in that environment, I know that you are going to come home different because of the way that I set the weekend up. And that's what I want to leave behind.
It was interesting. I was following a lot of, like Lewis and Chris and Lori and some of your mastermind people last year. And some of the posts, like they were posting about and I don't think it was a mastermind specifically last year, but it really kind of turned into one. And, you're having that this year. But it stopped me in my tracks on certain things. And I think you can relate to this, Rob, because I'm very driven. You're very driven. And when we're in our schedules and we're in the family schedules and take the kid here, take the kids here, and the wife and the date nights and just the day-to-day grind of making an income. And when you put somebody in that environment, they almost forget after maybe day 3, day 4, that they're even driven. They're even like, I just want to have a cup of coffee and, meditate and just relax. And it's almost like out of people like me and you's comfort zone. Maybe not now for you because you love it, but like that would be totally uncomfortable for me probably for the first couple days because I'm like, okay, where's the gym? I got to work out first. That's just who I am. And I think what you're also offering people is freedom from themselves, freedom from their work schedule, freedom from their work ethic. Because what is life? Is life just work hard, play hard? Yes. But I would rather play hard more than I work hard. So you really offer people that opportunity, especially driven, successful, millionaires, 6 figures, people that just want to do this. You offer them that ability to pause, hit the pause button, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in life, and really experience life at its fullest. When you can make a lot of money and you can be driven like you have in your past, but like, what's the use? It's just money. Some people are so poor, all they have is money.
I'll tell you, when I was with Lori in Greece, she was, really regimented in what she wanted to do, right? She's super entrepreneurial. She's got her workout set. She's got the time she wants to go to bed. And then after a couple of days in the sun of the Greek islands, she made a decision. She's like, you know what? I'm just going to live in the moment. I am going to allow, for once in my life, I am going to allow this day to unfold the way it unfolds. And she did. She rolled with it. And so did the rest of the people in the group. Some people were better at it than other people were. Everybody, was on different scales there. And then they went off to Spain after that and continued doing that. But to answer the question on the impact, what I'm looking to create and the legacy that I'm trying to create is, I know that if I were to take you with me to Monaco and we're hanging out and we're having, a glass of champagne and, we're in the south of France in the middle of the summer, I know that when you come back home to Chicago, you're going to be different. You're going to be different because of the people that you were with, because of the experiences that you had with them and the experiences that you had in the location and the environment that you were with. So I'm looking to change how people are looking at their own lives by putting them into experiences that they don't normally do. For example, I'm working on something in Boston now where I'm renting out before a museum opens. It's a super high-end museum in Boston. And we're going to go look at art. We're going to spend a couple of hours with a curator, and we're going to walk through the halls of some of the best artwork in the world, and we're just going to look at it. We're not going to worry about whether it's a Rembrandt or a Picasso. We're going to see how it moved us. We're going to access different parts of our brain to stimulate new thinking, new ideas with a high-level tribe. We have all kinds of different experiences planned, because you have to get out of the habit of being yourself. That's the hardest part. We are one giant pattern where we do the same damn thing every single day. There has to be a pattern interrupt that changes it.
So, obviously it's been 6 months, 7 months, 8 months since a lot of your friends and colleagues have been to, I think it was Greece. What kind of changes have you seen in them? Like, are they continuing to maybe not in that moment, but also realize, stop and smell the roses even now because of that experience?
Yeah, tons of changes. I mean, people are, number one, everybody's going back. That's number one.
Yeah.
They hadn't been there once in their life, and this will be probably the fourth year in a row now that Chris and Lori are coming back. Because it's that incredible. A lot of the ideas come from coming back and growing their businesses in different ways. For example, Lori decided that she's not so into fitness anymore, and she wants to be a businesswoman. Like, let's think Sarah Blakely, like a bigger businesswoman. Chris decided he wanted to double down, not just on one mastermind, but he wants to have two masterminds, one for entry level and one for higher level. So, I can give you example after example, story after story of each person that was there. But the point is that there were pivots, there were changes in how they wanted to do what they were going to do, and they all influenced each other. They all came back and went, "Oh God, I didn't think about that." When I go with my friend Darren, who's got $100 million company, I don't come back thinking about making $1 million. I come back thinking, how can I make $100 million? Because I'm just around him. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm again reminded of Nelson Mandela's one of his things he said. He said, "I cherish my own freedom dearly, but I care even more for your freedom." So I think it's just so cool, and that's why I really wanted to have you on this podcast specifically about you versus your freedom, because I truly believe it is a battle. I mean, obviously, if it wasn't, everyone would be free. Everyone would be living their dream. Everyone would just be, drinking champagne and, experiencing life. But obviously it takes money, it takes courage, it takes overcoming your fears and everything like that. So I think your ability to win this battle between you and your freedom hinges not only on how you view your freedom, but also on how you choose to use it. So I just love what you're doing, and I love how it's impacting high level people, and it's also impacting, because let's face it, like, the average person, right? They might make an impact, and they could make an impact, but when you're also working with people that already are high level, and then they come back from your mastermind, they come back from an experience, they come back from the things that you're doing. I know you're taking 3 major trips throughout the year, and you got all the other stuff attached to it. Think about the impact they could make, because they're making already a big impact. Like a Lewis Howes is making a very big impact, but I've seen him just 2 years ago to where he's at today make 10 times more of an impact. A lot of people talk about 10x, 10xing it. So it's just so amazing to see that, because like a Nelson Mandela, like, somebody, just one person can really revolutionize a country. One person can really revolutionize not only their own life, but other people's lives. So I just love what you're doing. Can you just explain a little bit in detail your mastermind, what it's all about, how people can get in touch with you who are interested in really that experience? Because I'd love for you just to share that so people know specifically, and then also talk a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So the mastermind, if you like what you heard and you want to learn more about it, it's pretty simple. Just go to workhardplayhardmasterminds.com. And this mastermind, I think it's better to, a lot of your listeners are probably entrepreneurs that know what a mastermind is. Just on a basic level, a mastermind is just getting a group of people together that are roughly in the same income bracket and kind of mixing them up in a pot, all different disciplines, and you help each other grow your businesses. And that's effectively what a mastermind is. That is a great way to scale and grow your business, full stop. What I want my mastermind to be, because we are not just our business. We are so much more than our business. We're husbands and wives and fathers and sons, and we have different parts of our personality that all need to be affected. And I don't want to come to the end of my life not understanding the difference between different types of wine or different types of art or seeing different countries or meeting different people. I want to expand all of the areas of my life. So if you're looking for a mastermind that is specifically going to help you to become more of an influencer or more of a business person, my mastermind is not for you. But if you're looking to have a mastermind that encompasses lots of different things with a super high level tribe, and you have to be making a couple of $100,000 a year to a couple of $1 million a year, somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. And you are looking for a tribe that you can have experiences with. You're totally down for travel, and you either, never been abroad but wanted to go abroad, or you've been abroad and you want to go back abroad, and you're willing to step out of your box, try new things, go to new places, have new experiences, connect with a higher level tribe, then this is the right mastermind for you.
I love that. And, I wanted to say this too, because while you were talking, I was thinking about this. It's like, okay, if I'm going to win this battle of my freedom and have, of course, experiences like this, and not just even being in a mastermind, but being in this mastermind and also doing great things after the mastermind and really living in that freedom, I think it's like, instead of just using your freedom to develop into a better version of yourself, use it to develop others into a better versions of themselves. And I think that's what we're all trying to do. Me, you, a lot of the people that you're working with is we have a heart for not only ourselves and getting out of maybe the funk or getting out of that career that we don't like, or we're very grateful for it, but we really want to make a bigger impact. So I wanted to kind of end the podcast with a couple of thoughts, and I want you, Rob, to piggyback off this and kind of the last statement here of the podcast, but kind of wrapping up these 3 freedoms. Because some people are still probably in freedom 1. They're still thinking like, okay, I have to kick this habit, this addiction. I can't even get past that. But I feel people feel they could be, like if I was to ask you or ask the listeners, what do you feel crushed by? There's certain things in our life that maybe we feel crushed, and we've had that overwhelming feeling. And I hate that word overwhelming, because a lot of people are, I'm just overwhelmed. Okay, really? I think Nelson Mandela was a little bit more overwhelming situation than you were. So, so it's just kind of all perspective, right? But if we can finally get to that point where we're making wise choices, we're on the path, we don't have to necessarily get the freedom today, but as long as we're on the path of freedom and declaring it, and like you said, publicly, we're not going to feel so much crushed. I think we're going to feel enthused. We're going to have that enthusiasm. And then I think what people need to ask themselves is, what do we want freedom from? What's holding us back? For you, Rob, obviously, things were holding you back. I mean, your chiropractic, even though you loved it at a time and you just did it for so long, but is there anything else that you can think of that was holding you back that you did have to attack and battle with and relinquish its power so that way you can get to that next level, even recently?
Yeah, I still battle with it, which is belief. That is the Achilles heel, because anytime you start something new, you don't have any references to support that you're good at it. So for me, it was super easy, to say, of course I can do $1 million practice. I've been doing it for years. But in many ways, that was a handicap for me, because it was a comfort level where I was making, a good living and I enjoyed it, but I never was able to go beyond it. And now what I want to do is I want a much larger answer to your question, but I want to be able to take this mastermind, take it into the corporate world for CEOs and founders that are not addressing these areas of their lives. And I want to have a $10 million exit from the company. So to do that, I have to say, okay, well, my references show that I've only been able to do $1 million a year. Now I want to have a company that's valued at $10 million. How do I get there? Well, now I've got to battle, because it's, you and I both know it's all in our own heads. Like it could be $100 million company if I just wrap my head around it. So to answer your question, it's around battling the belief that I can do it without the references that support that I can.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. And it's like you don't have to fully understand freedom to want it, but you do have to be ready to take responsibility for the path you walk after you get it.
Yeah,
so
right.
I really believe that you had to take responsibility, right, Rob? I mean,
Yeah,
all
for
of this
sure.
stuff coming to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to. You look. This is what this all comes down to. If you have a victim mentality where you're pointing the finger at somebody else for your lot in life, you're never gonna move on. At some point, you got to look in the mirror and you got to go, I am responsible for all of this. I'm going to take the good stuff. Yep, I've been able to have a great life, make $1 million a year. Great. I'm responsible for that. I'm also responsible for the fact that it was only $1 million a year. So I think you got to just get real honest with yourself and get really responsible.
That is absolutely a fact. And everyone that's listening, Rob just basically just spit the truth right there. The current reality is what we all have to come, in order for me to build my belief, in order for me to get confidence, even as a first-time author. My book's coming out next week and it's going to be on Amazon. And my dream has always been a New York Times bestseller. And what can really come from that? Of course, we all face the imposter syndrome, but at the same time, okay, cool. We face it. That's our current reality. But what are we going to do about it? And I really do believe you have to know the end game too. Like, is your end game freedom 2 or freedom 4? Are you going to start a rebellion or a revolution? So for me, and I think for you, Rob, just hearing your goals and your dreams, they're big dreams, they're big goals, but it really is a revolution. Like, you're really, like, when you go to the corporate world, that's a whole different beast. So for you to say that would be huge for that. And no one's doing it. So you'd be like, one of those people that, and that's good. That's a great thing where you're going to a market that I've never heard of that. Like, what you're doing for the entrepreneurs makes sense, because they have money. And of course, what you're doing is amazing. No one's doing what you're doing, literally, but it just makes sense. They kind of have freedom. They can do their own schedule. They don't have a 9 to 5. A lot of them, maybe some of them do, but you really are not just starting a rebellion. You're starting a revolution. And what they're going to do when they come back is just unlimited potential.
In this sort of, I'm going to call it, this world that you and I are in, I'm going to call it sort of the influencer world, because I don't know what else to call it. It's a bit incestual. We're all sort of like going to the same events, we're going to the same masterminds, and we're doing the same things. But there's a whole world out there of people that, whether they're in investment banking or they're CEOs of their own company or founders of their own company, they want a piece of this, but they're not on Instagram, doing stories all day long. But they're still inside of them. There's still a piece inside of them that's like, look, I want to be able to be living this life, and not for Instagram. Like, it's funny. A lot of one of the questions I got on social today is your mastermind just for influencers? And the irony is that half of the people in my mastermind don't even have an Instagram account. So, awesome. This is for everybody.
That's awesome. So, Rob, it absolutely has been a pleasure to have you on. I just wanted to leave with a couple of action steps because every podcast episode, whether I have a guest or not, I do want to leave listeners with action. Just like we said in the very beginning of this, it's like, you can listen to podcasts all day. You can go to every Tony Robbins event that he puts on. But if there's not action after the listening, then it was kind of a waste of your time. You should have just drank a beer and watched Netflix. So, you know what I'm saying? So I always like to leave some action here with them. But is there any other last thing that you want to share before I just give people 3 action steps from what you said on what they can do right away to take their freedom to the next level?
You know what? I think what they should do is make sure that they continue to follow you, because you're a super inspiring guy. You're a hell of a guy, and you've got a wife, a beautiful wife, and you got kids. But you're making the time to do your own pivot, which is to get yourself out of you're not leaving network marketing. You're just doing something different in your life, and I know how challenging that is, and the balls you have to be able to write a book and promote a book and to raise a family, and to have that hair. You know what I mean? Like the hair alone is a full-time job. So I'm with you, and I think people should just make sure that they double down on noticing all of these areas of your life that you're willing to put forth for them to see and say, hey, look, if he can have this body and he can have this level of income with network marketing, and he can be an author, and he can be a dad, and he can be a husband, and I can do it too. So follow this guy. That's what I say.
Well, I really appreciate that, Robin. And what is your handle on Instagram? Because people need to follow you too, because you have some awesome stuff that you put out there on a day-to-day basis. And I do love watching your Insta stories and, just you talking. And I don't know how you do that video. The video thing that you do on your Instagram is cool. I mean, you got some awesome stuff there. How do they follow you on Instagram?
They follow me with Rob Murgatroyd, just my name. It's not Robert. It's just Rob Murgatroyd. And what cool thing were you asking about?
Oh no, the video. I don't know if you have an iPhone, but you just take. It looks like a professional video every time you do your.
Oh, you just slide it over to the focus button.
There you go. I learned some more things today.
Yeah, just slide it over to the focus, and what it does is it blurs the background. It gives you a cinematic effect.
Perfect. See, guys, you learn even on how to do your stories better. and keeping the hair game. Most 50-plus-year-olds don't have hair like you do. So just FYI.
Listen, I'm glad I still have it.
Exactly. Well, Rob, it's been a pleasure. I just want to leave everyone with these 3 actions from what Rob said today. I've been taking notes the whole time. I believe that we must take inventory from what Rob has said. What do you need freedom from is a question you need to ask yourself. Where we are all trying to overcome something from our past. Rob's not had a great past, but look what he's done from his past. I would say grab a piece of paper and identify the negative thoughts and actions that have ruled your life up until this point. In order to move forward, you have to get gut level real with what is holding you back. So I would say step 1 is that. Step 2, get rebellious. What do you need to get freedom to? That's what Rob did. He got a little bit rebellious. He said, look, I got to get more freedom. I got to go after this. Even though I'm comfortable, I'm making good income. I need to go from point A to point B. And he made a plan and he got rebellious. So write down the core values that drive you. Write down your strengths and gifts that need to be unleashed. You were created to thrive, not survive. Recklessly abandon yourself to who you were created to be and spread your wings and soar like Rob is doing right now. And then the last thing, and this is something that we all need to hear, get a bigger vision than yourself. What do you need freedom for? Write down who you want to impact. Write down what positive change you want to create in the world. Realize the impact you can have on those around you. Begin to live your life with a heart that bleeds to help improve the quality of life for others. And that's exactly what Rob Murgatroyd and his wife is doing for so many other people out there. So Rob, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been my pleasure. I thank you so much for your time. I know you're very, very busy, but to take 40, 50 minutes out of your day, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Oh, you bet. You've got one heck of a career in podcasting if you want it. You're really good at it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And congratulations on everything that you're doing. And again, everyone go follow Rob Murgatroyd, Murgatroyd. By the way, you got the coolest last name ever.
Yeah, thank you.
Follow Rob Murgatroyd on Instagram. Check him out. Check out what he's doing. Check out his masterminds. And of course, they can listen to your Work Hard, Play Hard podcast. And also, last note, what's up this Friday date night thing? You and your wife do also a Friday date, I think it's called?
Yeah, we do a Friday date. We get a lot of relationship questions, and so we just decided to, we went to a third weekly episode in the podcast. So we do 3 a week, but the third one is now called Friday Date. And we talk about real stuff related to challenges that we're having in our lives. And we talk about it as a couple. It's actually a lot of fun. You see a completely different side of me and her, because you know how it is. Your wife, you're different with your wife than you are, in real life. You know what I mean? So you hear a different side of me, and you hear the things that I'm not willing to share that my wife calls me out on, and vice versa.